Hi everyone, you all are doing well. I hope I'm clearly audible. Uh, we are here today with another of our YouTube lives, and today we have with us today a very interesting partner who are building some breakthrough solutions to democratize decentralization in Web3. As you know, that's the flavor of the season. Now we are approaching a bull market, and there are several solutions that are being created in order to make the next billion of Web3 users onboarding a seamless experience. And open custody protocol is another solution which is actually enhancing this procedure by creating several products and services in this realm. So we have with us today Luis from the team who will be talking in detail about the technology and about the project. So let's quickly welcome him and get him to introduce himself and also his journey at Open Custody Protocol. So Luis, over to you. Why don't you talk a little bit about yourself and your background?
Thank you so much, Romana. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon on WazirX channel to have this AMA with all the WazirX community, and super happy to be able to tell you a little bit more about what we are doing at the Open Custody Protocol. A little bit about me and myself. So, well, my name is Luis Vaello, and I'm on the operations team on the Open Custody Protocol. About myself, I've been working on the crypto industry for the past 10 years. My focus since I learned about Bitcoin like nearly 12 years ago was always to experiment with it, learn more on what things can be done and how we can solve and create solutions for the adoption of cryptocurrency. That was like my first approach to it back then. And it was about, I think the first problems that we saw was how to acquire Bitcoin, right? How could we put Bitcoin into people's hands? So we launched a Bitcoin exchange back in the day, a local exchange in Spain, where we worked for a lot of solutions, simplifying the acquisition and then simplifying the usage of it. And by the usage, it was by creating payment railways or even Bitcoin ATMs where people could sell their crypto and could convert it into cash, because like crypto to crypto payments was a little bit less adopted back then. From that, I joined the operations team on large exchanges like Binance for a couple of years. And then I decided to go back to, let's say, a non-custodial way of doing things, right? And especially on the custody. So I joined the Qredo team back in 2021 with the objective of decentralizing MPC custody. I've worked at Qredo on the operations team over the past 3 years until I moved into the Qredo Foundation, which was managing more part of the protocol and the token ecosystem. This has been since the start of this year, and this is what we have transitioned the Qredo Foundation into the Open Custody Protocol Foundation, where we are taking to the next level the mission that we had back then on decentralizing custody into the next big wave and stage in the evolution of that, which is modular custody. And that's where Open Custody Protocol has a very big narrative and a big, strong messaging and mission to do and accomplish.
Perfect. That sounds good, and definitely appreciate the diverse experience that you bring, especially in today's conversation, because we are going to be talking a little bit about technical details, and I'm sure your expertise will actually come in handy. So before the session, I was just getting a little curious about what the technology is all about, and what is modular custody as such. And I was reading up a bit, and the simplest sort of explanation that was out there was one person who does not have all the access to maybe something which is extremely precious. So it's like multiple access for multiple people in different parts of that same sort of asset, which makes it not just decentralized but also secure. So no one can actually replicate what you have access to, but they can have their own individual thing while not interfering with how you engage with a certain solution or a product. But of course, since I'm not native to this, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers aren't as well, it would be great coming from you if you could explain in the simplest of terms to everyone today, what exactly is the solution all about.
So this is something pretty innovative. I mean, like we've recently discovered, I think, or we were one of the first to approach the modularity on the custody aspect of things. We've seen how other protocols have been in the race for data availability, for example, like Celestia on modular blockchains narrative, but to better understand it and maybe for the wider audience into a simple way, we need to get back to how blockchains are set up, right? We've got the monolithic architecture blockchains where all of the application layer, the consensus layer, the data layer are stacked together in one complete stack. And we have these modular blockchains, which basically separates all of that into different modules or building blocks where builders and developers can choose which blocks to use to deploy their applications or their chains, right? There's been a race of modular blockchains in the security aspect of things. So we've got data availability modular blockchains, we've got security stack modular blockchains. And on that, we saw that there was a huge gap and necessity to connect different types of custodial solutions in a simple way for builders and developers to build and deploy their applications, right? To create these building blocks where they could choose what is the right key management solution or custodial solution for their application or their users. Now, the way that Open Custody Protocol works is that it connects all of these different types of key management solutions or custodial solutions. This could be, for example, a distributed multi-party computation, a self-custodial wallet or KMS that a builder or an enterprise could have to store their private keys. It could be a hardware wallet where users directly store their private keys. So basically, it's anything that can store key material, which are private keys, and sign with those private keys. And what Open Custody Protocol does is it connects all of that, not only on the technical aspect of it, like the API integrations and the integrations at protocol levels to simplify that through let's say, a relayer that connects all of that at different protocol levels and different types of chains or systems, but also on the economic part of it. Because let's say you've got a trusted custodian on one side that wants to get paid on stablecoins on a monthly basis. Then you've got a distributed protocol that generates keys, but they have their own native token, right? So how do we simplify that process also for builders? And that's how OCP connects all of those blocks together and simplifies a unified experience for builders to deploy their applications and decentralize it.
Got it. So it's like if you have a house and you have all of you have a key to the main door, and then each of you have your separate keys to your separate rooms. So maybe that sort of explains broadly in very simple terms what modular custody is, if I'm not wrong.
It's similar, but let me put you another example.
Okay.
And it's not going to be related to custody. It's going to be related for Web2 kind of activity and payments. So I'm not sure if you know about Stripe. Stripe is one of
Yeah.
the softwares that e-commerce and web builders can integrate very simple with widgets, with SDKs, with a lot of things, and connect a lot of different payment methods.
Right.
It could be cryptocurrency, it could be Visa, it could be MasterCard, it could be PayPal, it could be whatever local payment method there is on the other side. So basically what Open Custody Protocol does is kind of acting like a Stripe, but for custodial solutions. So you could have all of these different custody things on or custody types on one side, and on the other side you've got the builders and the users and this connects both of these things together.
Perfect. That's I think that's a better explanation. Yeah. Okay. So you did mention that when you started out, you were one of the first people to address this gap in the market. So when you did notice it, it was probably from a security aspect. I'm pretty sure, but and you also understood that there would be a lot of interest from the user side because there's of course the gap comes from that, but was it mostly from the institution side or was it mostly from the retail side? Because I've been reading in the news you've had some interesting partnerships of late, but I also want to understand that what has been the response and what has been the demand from the retail as well as institutional investor side for custody solution which is similar to this.
Okay, so the thing is, we've been working on the past years on the attempt to decentralize MPC. Now, the thing is that on that mission that we had, which we thought we solved the single point of failure, not being able to decentralize that and only distribute it and managing everything from a, let's say, company perspective, it became in itself the single point of failure. Now, this was highly used and it was highly adopted, but there are like many new things coming into the market, many new technologies. Like today, distributing MPC is nothing new. Like there are a lot of big players doing it at the moment. There are a lot of new players in innovative technologies that are coming out and solve that problem. So it's nothing new how it was back in 2020 or even before, right? So what we do is we actually, not only by connecting them to builders, we allow builders to distribute and eliminate that single point of failure by distributing all of their key management and custodial solutions between all of them. Now, that's super strong from a user perspective, but also from an institutional perspective. So let's say you're a big TradFi fund that are going to store billions in the future on Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having them or relaying all of your custody to a single vendor is a
Hmm.
huge risk.
Yeah.
Splitting that also into multiple buckets, it's not operationally, let's say,
Viable.
as smooth. But if you can distribute the multi-signature of that between different custodial solution, and it could be like a decentralized MPC, it could be a trusted custodian, it could be self-custody, you eliminate all of the single points of failure. And this is where it gets very innovative. And that's where it gets super powerful solution on what we are building. Like the use cases that people can build on top of that and how it sets up the infrastructure layer and the foundation layer for what's coming next with all of the TradFi coming into blockchain technology.
So, what would you say is the ratio of retail versus institutional interest as of now? So, in the last 3-4 years, what's been the ratio?
So we've had in the past where we were having like the platform, we had institutional users, especially very crypto native institutional users, because those are the most DeFi users, let's say, like the big institutions that are buying like on the ETFs today, Bitcoin, they
Yeah.
usually not get into DeFi, right? Where we see that the big volumes are on crypto natives, and on the protocol right now, interests are coming from builders who want to build, and also users and token holders that want to participate on the protocol by participating in governance, staking, and securing the future of the protocol by helping it shape direction.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. So, we since we are talking from a WazirX point of view as well, now that Open is listed on WazirX, I wanted to understand what has been your experience in the Indian market, both in terms of retail as well as institutions. So, we know for a fact that DeFi is taking off, but it's not as big as we had sort of aspired to be. Maybe in another 3-4 years, we would truly see that adoption, actually growing. But right now, I want to understand from again from a retail and institutional point of view, what has been the response from the Indian market? What has been your experience so far?
Absolutely, and that's a very great question. I think on the Indian market side, I mean, it's very clear that the listing of back then Qredo token and now CP token on WazirX has created a lot of awareness in a very big market, and especially because WazirX, for audience outside India, maybe they don't realize, but it's one of the biggest exchanges in the world, especially in the number of users, right? And that's huge for us, like a huge milestone to be listed in your exchange. Now, what I think that we bring into the Indian market and where we could see exponential growth is India has one of the largest developers community, not only in Web3 but also in Web2, right?
Web 2.
So for us, building this primitive that simplifies the process for builders to experiment when they want to choose a custodial solution in a very simple way. So imagine they are testing, okay, we want to launch a specific type of dApp for DeFi, or we want to build, I don't know, a custodial solution, or we want to build a wallet, or we want to build all of these things. The developer community for us in India will be very important to reach them because we will see that it can scale not only on India but globally, because the majority of these developers work in companies all across the world and all across not only the blockchain ecosystem but everywhere. Like it's something that we see. So we see India a huge potential market for us, especially on the builder side.
Okay. And so of course, Web 2 is also it's not going anywhere. While Web 3 is taking off, Web 2 is growing simultaneously, and so is the builder community. So do you see that as a good? I mean, of course, it's a great sign that something like this custody protocol is going to be adopted. But where do you see some of the potential, advantages, or if any, shortcomings at all, like in terms of awareness or in terms of adaptability, quick response towards new solutions coming up in the market, such as yours? So I just want to understand your perspective.
I mean, for Web 2 developers coming into Web 3, right? There are many decisions and many problems that they need to solve.
Hmm.
And especially if you are considering Web 2 users, right? Like we see every single day how people lose access to their passwords on Web 2 social media, e-commerce, etc. Like people are used to lose like their passwords, their secrets, their accounts, their email access, everything. Like that could be potentially very terrible experience in the Web3 ecosystem where users authenticate, for example, with their private keys and manage like this kind of public key, private key solution. So for us, reducing that risk and building tools where Web2 builders can adapt easy and provide a similar experience and seamless experience to users in Web2, where they can completely have where they can mitigate all of the risks, all the private key risks by account abstraction, key aggregation, like all of these things to simplify that experience for these users. I think is critical for the onboarding from Web 2 to Web 3. That's basically where we can provide the most valuable at the moment.
Got it. um because you also mentioned single points of failure and security, and a lot of these companies in India, not just private ones, but the government is also actively talking about regulations in Web3. We can see a regulatory framework coming up in the Indian crypto market, either this year or early next year, and we are obviously in anticipation of the same. And we are also looking at a few traditional financial institutions, say for example large banks, which may take cues from their global counterparts and also roll out decentralized solutions in the Indian market, or existing financial institutions which provide fiat solutions might also consider rolling out blockchain based services. So how can they benefit from modular custody protocol, or the whole custody solution that you provide, especially from a security point of view and a safekeeping of data, as well as assets point of view?
Okay. So one of the challenges that we saw in the past was that to work with financial institutions, you need to comply with their compliance and security requirements.
Yeah.
In most cases, that means they need to custody themselves the private keys. Now, that could be a big issue in some places, right? Like if they're like distributed solutions, like distributed MPC doesn't allow themselves to custody their own keys. Now, with open custody, you solve that because you can allow them to onboard and deploy quickly on secure KMS solutions and leverage with other types of MPCs. So they will always hold part of their private keys, and they can leverage with an external part to make it more resilient and more secure. So that solves one of the biggest problems in terms of compliance. And when I mean compliance, I don't mean about regulators. I mean about internal compliance and rules that
Yeah.
these financial institutions have on their own side. So this solves this problem. And that was one of the biggest problems we saw in the past, right? When we were working with distributed MPC, the problem that they had is like they must know and they must, let's say, write on their checkbox of their compliance list where those key material is stored, right? Where is the key material stored? Where are the private keys stored? And with distributed technology, you cannot have it directly. But if you offer solutions that can leverage both, it simplifies all of that process and it makes it easier for the compliance to get the approval sign on the tech departments. Because what we see always in these financial institutions are we've got the innovation and blockchain teams, which they want to push and move forward things, but then there's always like the security and compliance teams, which are always like pushing down, right? And there's like this battle between them inside these institutions, and that's why it slows down things. Then we need to take into consideration regulation. So as soon as regulations access in those markets, and we provide solutions to simplify the building of their security and custodial solutions, we've got an excellent um, environment for them to move forward and onboard. Like then is when we will start to see real onboarding of uh, TradFi into crypto, I think.
Okay. And just to understand, comparing the ecosystem in India vis-a-vis that of the global counterparts, where you see a good thriving market, how easy or difficult is it to sort of convince Web2 companies or even emerging Web3 companies to integrate such solutions? Like, how open are they towards, this?
So the problem that it existed always is if you want to build, for example, in EVM, you've only got like one kind of solution, right? Which is a multi-sig smart contract. Now it's difficult to get out of that to deploy those applications. With modular custody, you wide that solution very very. I mean, you could have any kind of custodial solution on the other end to still deploy that application in a simple way. Right now, it's very early to say the kind of adoption that we can expect. I mean, we've just launched the protocol statement, how the protocol will look like. We are deploying the first parts and bits of the protocol, which would be operating a multi-party computation keychain, which allows builders on Warden protocol, which is a modular security protocol that layer one that it is being launched this year, and we are deploying on their testnet next week, so that builders can start building not only regular applications but omni-chain applications, because we abstract all at a chain level all their key material for the different blockchains, and that simplifies the process. So we will see on the coming weeks the adoption on this. Web2 is always more difficult, but Web3 native, I think there's going to be a huge trend over the coming months, years, on changing that simple multi-sig structure that has been governing all across the blockchain space into more advanced solutions.
Perfect. Understood. So I was reading, like I said, I read some of your integrations and some of your partnerships in the news recently. So there was a mention of this partnership with Circle that you had with the USDC, and I just want to understand what exactly is the solution. While I did read the news article, I think maybe I really need a simplified explanation of what is this partnership all about.
So that partnership was part of okay. Inside Qredo, when we were all working on Qredo, and Qredo, unfortunately, the project didn't continue as such, and there's been like a couple of
Right.
spin-offs
Right.
where Open Custody Protocol is leading the path of the decentralization of custody, and in this case, the modularity of custody, which is the natural evolution of it. But during that stage, there was a toolkit that we built, which allowed to, let's say, through smart contracts, manage any chain through any chain. So basically, you could manage Bitcoin or you could manage Ethereum EVMs from Polygon EVM.
Okay.
And what they did, I think it was with EtherSpot back then, was to be able to use EtherSpot contracts with the QSign contracts with combination of Circle to allow to make USDC cross-chain natively across multiple chains and be able to be managed from any single chain. That was the thing. Right now, USDC was leading on Ethereum chain and a couple of other EVMs, but that would allow any builder to interact with USDC from any of the chains.
Ah, okay. Understood. Nice.
But
That's
that was actually discontinued. It
yeah,
didn't.
okay, yeah, because of course of the new evolution and stuff. Got it. Okay, so I think while this has been pretty helpful, you simplified a lot of these technical updates for us, which honestly would be helpful for us going forward when we read up more about not just this, but also something similar that may be coming up in the market, which is also working towards making decentralization more accessible for a lot of people. But I want to understand what is the next, next step for open? Like, what do you see happening in the next 3 years? What is the roadmap like? Let's talk from an India perspective right now. Like, how do you see the growth happening in India? You also talked about the token listing has actually created some level of awareness. But apart from that, how do you see that progressing in terms of adopting the solutions and not just like holding custody of the token?
Yeah. So right now, I mean, since we announced the Open Custody Protocol, let's say just under 2 months ago, it's been like super fast paced. Everything we've accomplished a complete rebrand in most of the exchanges. I would say probably 98% of the exchanges today, with one major exchange that it is pending this update of the token. Then we are launching, and these are like short term items. Next week, we will launch the staking platform for the users to be able to stake their open tokens. We will deploy the first keychain, so developers will be able to start exploring with open custody protocol technology and how can they deploy omnichain applications and leveraging their custodial or key management needs through MPC, which is quite cool. And then on the longer term and the longer visions, like let's say on the 3 years, on the next 3 years, our idea, and this should come before the next 3 years, but is to build a completely trustless relayer for this middle layer and this primitive for all of the different custodial solutions in the market. So whenever any type of developer on any type of chain, or not even chains, like even at a web level without having to interact with a blockchain, want to utilize any kind of key material, they could integrate Open Custody Protocol, and with a simple API call and a simple line of code, they could deploy, change, update their custodial requirements in a. For us, it's about simplifying everything and aggregating all of the different custody providers out there. So that's our end goal, to do it in a trustless way so that they don't need to rely, and we can eliminate finally that single point of failure that has been floating in the custody space for since it existed.
Okay, that's amazing. And I think as a natural progression, I'm sure as more products grow in the ecosystem, even in India for that matter, we will see adoption of such solutions on a larger scale. And maybe the next time we speak, you will have a lot more to talk about from the Indian perspective in the market, and not just from token holders, but also developers and institutions. So, wishing you all the luck with that. And I'm sure you'll have great success with India. It's a great time for us in the crypto ecosystem as well. Regulations are coming, things are looking up. So everything seems to be going on an upward trajectory right now. So I think if there are any questions from the audience, we can take it up, or I think or we can just address it later as well. So if any of you viewers have any questions, what you can do is you can just tweet to us and we can redirect it to the open team, and they can answer it for you in case you have any doubts. So we can close the session today. Any sort of remarks that you would like to share with the audience, Louis, before we close this?
For me, it's been a pleasure being here today with you and all of the community from WazirX. We really look forward for both the increase of DeFi activity in India, also the success of WazirX and the growth of it, and see how we can collaborate together in building innovative products into the DeFi ecosystem for both users, institutions, and builders, which all the users can really benefit from it. I also would like to invite everyone to join our communities on Telegram and Discord, and to be actively participating on both on the governance side and on staking, which is critical for the growth and development of our ecosystem.
Perfect. So open is listed on WazirX, as you all know. And do not forget to engage with the Telegram community for open, and go ahead and see all the announcements that they have, all the developments. You can keep up with that. It's pretty interesting as a project. Please make sure you learn about it, because these solutions are what is going to define the future of Web3 in the coming years. So it's best to just keep yourself updated. And thank you so much, Louis, for coming on board today. This has been great talking to you, getting to know. And yeah, I think, like I said, next time I see you, hope we have a lot more to talk about in terms of India's DeFi ecosystem. But I think whatever we have managed to achieve, both WazirX and Open, has been pretty good, exemplary, I would say. So yeah, both of us will have a lot to look forward to. But for today, we will, close. And yeah, like I said, any questions you can tweet to us. Hope to see more engagements, and do not forget to join the open community as well.